Together with the savagery of the fighting, the harsh winter conditions in the Ardennes were certainly similar to the Eastern Front. As the American poet Louis Simpson, serving with the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, wrote in his diary, "In this cold, the life in the wounded is likely to go out like a match."
Hi, I'm Anthony Beaver, and my feet are freezing because we are in the Ardennes. Even so, it is not as cold as it was in December and January 1944, when my book, Ardennes, 1944, Hitler's Last Gamble, was set. The point of writing about the Battle of the Ardennes was it was the greatest battle on the whole of the Western Front. But for me, there was a special challenge because it was, in many ways, the Western counterpart of the Eastern Front. Not just the weather, not just these snow and the really hard frost, but it was the savagery of the battle which really did bring the Eastern Front up against the Allied armies for the first time. They were fighting the most ruthless SS panzer divisions, and there was the killing of prisoners on both sides in a truly terrifying way. This is the site of the infamous Malmedy massacre. What happened was, on the 17th of December, a convoy of trucks was coming from Malmedy down here at Ardennes at the crossroads, on their way to Saint-Vite, and this was part of the 7th Armoured Division, which were rushing down as fast as they could to reinforce the defence of Saint-Vite. But what happened was that they suddenly clashed with Piper's Kampfgruppe advancing, in fact, from the east, coming along from just below the Elsenborn Ridge. Piper's lot were with tanks and with panzer wagons, with half-tracks, were able to surround this convoy and force all of the soldiers, altogether well over 100 of them, out, and they then started to loot them of their possessions. They had to hold out what their watches and things in their helmets. And then suddenly one of the SS officers started shooting, and every single gun opened up on them. Some of them rushed to the woods just behind, hoping to escape, and altogether 84 were killed. And here, along the wall, you have the names of the 84 American soldiers who were gunned down in that massacre. There were also several Belgian civilians killed as well. And their bodies, in fact, the bodies of all these soldiers, were not really recuperated until later, when the battle was over, later in January. The massacre took place here at Ardennes, Malmedy, soon after midday on the 17th of December. By the end of that afternoon, virtually the whole American army knew. Word spread like wildfire. There was an absolute determination not to take any more SS as prisoners, to just shoot them down. This was encouraged by many senior generals, even General Bradley, General Simpson and others. And it had this tremendous knock-on effect throughout the rest of the campaign. In this village of Chernon, on the 31st of December and the 1st of January 1945, there was a terrible battle. Most of these houses were all knocked down completely. As you can see, 23 civilians out of this tiny village were all killed during the fighting. But worst of all was the American 11th Armoured Division, untried in battle. Its men were so furious after losing so many casualties that they rounded up their prisoners and they shot over 60 of them. General Patton in his diary said afterwards, "I hope that we can keep this one quiet." It was rather embarrassing after all of the noise which had been made, the outrage over the massacre at Malmedy, the Malmedy-Ardennes massacre.
The surprise and ruthlessness of Hitler's Ardennes offensive had brought the terrifying brutality of the Eastern Front to the West. But as with the Japanese invasion of China in 1937 and the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, The shock of total warfare did not achieve the universal panic and collapse expected. It provoked instead a critical mass of desperate resistance, a bloody-minded determination to resist even when surrounded. When German formations attacked, screaming and whistling, isolated companies defending key villages fought on against overwhelming odds. Their sacrifice bought the time needed to bring in reinforcements, and this was their vital contribution to the destruction of Hitler's dream. Perhaps the German leadership's greatest mistake in the Ardennes offensive was to have misjudged the soldiers of an army they had affected to despise.